Producers, do you have the hottest beats on the internet but can't seem to get paid for them? That was my worst video intro yet. I think one of the biggest mistakes producers make is to be scared to ask for money and payment for making beats, yet still expect to get paid for those beats. So they'll work with a rapper, produce the beats, maybe track a session, maybe even mix, engineer, never bring up money throughout the entire process, never bring up splits, nothing. And then after the fact, get all weird and passive aggressive about getting paid. So to summarize this problem, number one, I think a lot of producers want money from situations that could likely be handled a lot differently if they just communicated better. Number two, a lot of producers wait until the music has dropped before they even bring up the subject of payment. And number three, and this is going to sound strange coming from me, but a lot of producers have no idea how the music business works. And so they really focus on trying to get a rapper to pay them something up front and then lose all hope and freak out when a rapper cuts off communication. Now, if you find yourself in this situation, you've done good business, you've created some, even if you haven't communicated that you want payment or that you want splits from an artist that you're working with and they drop the song and they give you neither payment nor equity in a song that you also created. Watch my video entitled "The Famous Rapper Stole My Beat." I go through the whole process of recovering money, recovering royalties, registering stuff on your end so that you get paid at least something and that you can claim the equity in the song that you helped create because it's legally your right to do so. I go through how you can register the song with a PRO, potentially create a conflict if the artist registered the splits without including you. You can snatch some microsync money. You could start a content ID war, and you could even push the red button and file a DMCA takedown claim and get their music removed if they completely refuse to even communicate with you. But the reality is, producers, most of us do not communicate well and we don't do good business. We're scared to talk money, and then when it's too late, the song's already out, we see that it's generating money, then we get in our feelings and we get weird. Look, if an artist that we're working with and we do everything right, we communicate, and they don't want to do good business with us, cool, cut them off. Walk away. Don't get caught up in a cycle of abuse. But also know how to communicate well, how to do good business, what your rights are, how to assert them. That will take you a long way. I wanted to talk to my colleagues about this because Aaron has managed rappers and producers. Dame ran a record label with both rappers and producers signed to it. And I wanted to bring this up in the context of this video that resurfaced lately of Southside talking about how much he got paid for the first beat he ever sold, and you know, it's Southside, so it's a big deal. Come on, man, for real? Now I'm distracted. Hey, yo, for real? Let me just play the episode. The full podcast channel is below. There's a link in the description. Appreciate you checking it out. How much did you get paid for your first beat? Drop a comment with the number.
You sold
$750.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. $750.
I'm like, how much are they now?
Like 100,000.
Damn.
Yeah,
Add some zeros.
100 each one.
The interviewer is terrible.
I love how excited she was about the money. She
And how uninterested he was.
Yeah. I want to pose a couple questions to you because, number one, $750 for a single beat. He's an outlier. For your first beat to be sold at $750, that's a lot. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know if it was an artist who was signed, an artist who had a budget, someone who knew him, someone who looked up to him. Who knows, right? He knows, but he didn't say in the interview. And yeah, and I wish the interviewer had asked that rather than saying, well, 100,000, whatever. But we had an episode where we talked about, what was it titled? Are Gangsters Necessary in the Music Industry? And I think then we were speaking more literally about like the Suge Knights who would use violence and intimidation and all that. But there's also like the figurative gangster, you know what I'm saying? Where it's someone who, and I would put Southside on that side of the spectrum, or the figure, you know, I don't know him personally, but the type of person that people all seem to like and respect, and who also doesn't let people get over on him. To me, that's more like we're getting into figurative gangsterism, where I don't even want to focus on him getting $100,000 now. I'm talking about this $750 then, before he was this iconic president and founder of, you know, arguably the biggest and most successful producer collective. My question is, just in general, in music, sorry, I should have contextualized this more. A lot of us are afraid to ask for money, let alone get $750 for our first show as a DJ or a rapper, our first beat sold, our first public appearance, whatever it is. That's a great number. And what often happens, what I see so often, is that on the producer side especially, but also rappers who are performing shows, they perceive this kind of power imbalance where the person who is paying them, or who is the rapper, who's the promoter for the show or whatever, they perceive them as having more power simply because they want future opportunities. And so there's this dynamic created where they walk into the situation already intimidated, where it's like they won't even bring up money. So that's why I want to know more about the Southside situation. But this isn't really about him, because we don't have more details. Like, my first beat, I got $20 for. I would have been completely uncomfortable asking for $750.
You did it in person though, huh? Like,
I did it in person, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna say I can't say specifically what happened, but Southside is from the south side of Atlanta, and I am too. We grew up around some of the same groups of people. Used to know a lot of producers that he would run with. I'm from the south side. We graduated the same year from high school, and he came up with Waka Flocka. That's how he got on in Gucci. And Waka is from right down the street from me in Riverdale. So I can't say exactly what happened, but I can tell you probably some cultural and contextual things that probably happened. That might have been the first beat he sold, but it wasn't the first beat he made or placed, right? So he's rocking with his homies on the south side, especially in high school. Like, when he got signed to Waka / Gucci, he was I think 21. So he was, 3 years out of high school, maybe 2021. He's fresh out of high school, because I think that was 2010. But in that sphere, there was a good amount of suburban kids. I don't know where he comes from, but there were a good amount of suburban kids who were really making a ton of beats. And then the trappers and rappers was coming to the suburbs, or people pretending to be trappers and rappers coming to the suburbs, recording in their parents' basements, whatever. So Southside already had a reputation, which is why he changed his name to Southside, because I think he used to be called Sis or something like that. But also, I will say, it's, as the kids say, it's the Riz. If you throw up a number and you hang it, especially when you got Riz Southside, he's always kind of been a good talker, or just laid back. You see how he is. I'm pretty sure, in that I'm not going to make assumptions about his sobriety, but in that he's still laid back, whether he's whatever. So if you throw up a number and hang it, a lot of people don't want to look broke. So he might have thrown up a number and said 750, and the person might have not even really for real had it like that. Or he might have sized him up and been like, this is a trapper or a rapper or somebody who trying to look like they got money. You rapping about this type of thing. Let me try you on it. So I feel like there's a lot of social dynamics that, had I not had great parents and a moral connection to my maker, there's a lot of stuff that I could have done, because I used to try stuff, again, coming from the south side, my energy, the thought process around people, and I used to get a lot of yeses on stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Choosing music was the hard route for me. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and then he succeeded in music, but there's a lot of stuff that if you have the confidence, especially if you know how to talk to people, and especially if you're okay with not getting what you want right away, there's wins there. Even now in my career, I have delayed gratification because I wanted to do it a certain way, but the things that I get now, the way that I quote people, I'll throw it up and hang it, and I'm on my own type of time for everything. So I think that's just kind of I think it's a personality thing. I think it's a technique thing, but I also think it was who he was in the time in Atlanta, right? At that time, Soulja Boy was going crazy. Titty Boy had just changed his name to 2 Chainz. You know what I'm saying? The south side of Atlanta was Waka Flocka was Gucci was on his run. Waka Flocka was coming up. So even him being from the south side gives him a level of credibility and notoriety that would have been oh, I want to get a south side beat. And his beats have always banged. I'll say that too. The quality has always been dope. So I think it's a lot of different dynamics there.
Yeah, I don't even know how to comment, because there's just so much information that I don't have, right? He could have gotten 1,000 no's before he got to the one person. It could have been somebody that just had a bunch of bread. I don't know. So I'm not sure. I'm not even sure how to comment or to give advice based on this example.
Well, then I'll ask you in general, not even talking about Southside. You're a upcoming producer. You got artists. asking for beats from you, and you perceive them as having more influence than you in that regard, being intimidating because you're intimidated by the situation of even asking for money from someone that could potentially reject you or say, or cut you out completely and just say, I don't want to work with you anymore. I think that's the biggest fear from producers. They don't want to be cut out of future opportunities. You know, artists too, when they work with promoters, I don't fucking play with promoters. Get a deposit. You know, this is business. I mean, producers too get a deposit, but when you're first starting out, you don't know these things. You're intimidated. What is advice for a person that's first starting out and they're at that uncomfortable juncture where they need to ask for money or they feel like they want to ask for money? Maybe they don't need to. That's another conversation. A lot of people don't need to be asking for the money they ask for. Obviously, when you're someone like Southside, you're an exception in terms of your talent, in terms of your branding. But again, it's not about him. My question is just in general. What advice would you give for them?
Follow DJ Payne One's channel because he gives a lot of great information on pricing. I mean, because as a producer, like, you know, as you educate yourself, like the prices change depending on who you're talking to, right? Like if you're talking with somebody that you really want to build a relationship with that is on their way up as well, then that can be maybe more of a partnership creatively, right? And then you'll start to get more feedback based on how many people are reaching out to you for beats, and you'll start to get a better understand of like the demand for your beats. But the more you educate yourself, the more you have these conversations, you're not gonna get things right every single time. Like there's gonna be a time where maybe you should have charged more, or you should have gotten more of the master, or and you just have to learn from those experiences and put that back into how you negotiate going forward. But yeah, just there's so many producers right now giving information that even if you're starting today, you know, if you're really tapping in, you'll have a better idea on how to go about your pricing strategy. And then you just have to build up sales skills, and you have to build up your emotional intelligence, because you'll know when to push for things, when to fall back. But it all depends on what your end goal is with that artist in particular. It might just be an artist that you think is trash, and you know you're just trying to get as much money for that beat and don't really care about the future. That's a different conversation than somebody like Kennedy Ryan. If you're talking to her and you're like, oh man, she's gonna have a long future in this business. Like I got to make sure that this isn't a one-off. Then that conversation's different.
Which I think is rare. It's funny because I had a producer leave a comment on one of my videos, and they said, "Hey, what do you think of this? I don't want a bunch of trash rappers rapping over my beats. I want to focus on good rappers, so I'm going to charge $250 minimum for a lease." And I'm just like, what makes you think the best rappers have the most money?
Yeah.
You know, and so I wouldn't even recommend associating price with quality, and then maybe
Or
like,
want to pay more money, because I've
or
had
want to pay more money.
incredible rappers
Yeah.
making good money, and because they were like, I'm an incredible rapper, it's gonna make your beats look good. What? Like good rappers, the level of ego, you might as well cater to trash rappers. You may get better results, big dog.
Well, and a producer to even make that statement. I'm not going to come on here and bash producers like we have, or sorry, bash rappers like they're the only ones who have egos. We don't even know. These are all hypothetical situations, but the producer was the one pushing that narrative in this instance. So, number one, who knows if there's a disparity between how good you think you are and how good you actually are? Or if you're amazing still, then it's like, to speak to what Dame's saying, that's better advice than what most people would imagine in terms of like making money. And a lot of producers don't want to be flexible, but with experience, honestly, with me, I've become more rigid when it comes to my boundaries, but I've become more flexible when it comes to the business dynamics that I'm willing to experience. You know what I mean? Like 15 years ago, I wouldn't lease beats. Now I do. And 5 years ago, I wouldn't budge on my exclusive prices for DIY artists. But I've gotten so much feedback. Dame, we went on that tour. We talked to so many recording artists, So many artists are in my comments. I've had so many interactions with people who have limited budgets, who have questions, who have this and that, and all these needs that I used to take for granted. And I've become far more flexible because at the end of the day, I'm still doing what I love. And to go back to our earlier wins, I appreciate that so much more now than I did back then. That yeah, reach out as long as you're honest and as long as you're upfront, we can work through whatever.
Yeah, you'll learn. You just got to get to it. I mean, you want to work with the people that are not only talented, but, hopefully communicate well and have a team that does good business.